So, hey guys, if we go over all of the recent archetypes that have been released, so let's say Kashtira. So we have Kashtira, we have Early. Okay, so we'll just put in, I don't know, Noir, whatever. So the interesting thing about Yu-Gi-Oh right now is that we're heading a little bit away from just generic negate stuff now. And I think that that's the direction we're going to go for a while. So it's just for a while we're going to get a good amount of new cards that are going to just have points of interaction instead of just negate monster effect, negate spell trap, and all that. We are starting to move away from this, and this is actually kind of interesting because if we do start getting away from this, there's actually a weakness that is going to start opening up in the future. I'm not sure if anything is going to fill that void right now, or if anything can fill that void right now, or if something new is going to be released that will fill the gap. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, then let's go over this simple example. So we have Therion, Regulus. So we have Regulus here, and then let's say we have a card like, I don't know, yeah, just something silly. Let's see. So Kribo. What was the wording on Kribo? I need to check this. Oh yeah, this will do. So let's say we have, for example, Therian King Regulus, and our opponent is nearly about to die. So we attack with Therian King Regulus, but our opponent activates Kribo. So chain 1 Kribo in the damage calc. So during this point in time, we cannot negate with Therian King Regulus even if we still have the negate, no matter what. The reason being, uh, what Therian King Regulus does here. When your opponent activates a card or effect, you send one Therian monster card from your hand or face a field to the graveyard, negate that effect, not negate that activation. Only negate activation cards can negate during damage calc and stuff. Damage calc, before damage calc, whatever. So damage step and whatnot is kind of finicky with this stuff. And of course, let's say, for example, we have a monster effect that activates at this point in time. The Kashtira cards are weird in that they can technically activate here. But if we go with, for example, the Pearly stuff, let's say instead we actually do something like Mahama. So let's see if I can spell Mahama. Okay, I can't figure out how to spell Mahama clearly. Wow. Okay. How do you spell the name of this card? Damn. So, let's go through Light, Fairy, and then this is fairly high level, I think. So it's like maybe an 8 or a 7. Mihama. Can we find a Mihama here? Athena. No. Is it lower level? I don't see it here. It should be an SR, I believe. So let's do that and then search 6-5 maybe. Is it not a fairy? Is it a dragon? I thought it was a fairy. Oh, it's Mahama, not Mihama. Well, whatever. So, Mahama's effect here is this. During your opponent's turn, when either player takes spell damage, you can special summon this card from your hand, then apply one of these effects. Gain LP equal to the battle damage, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that battle damage. So, this card doesn't have this effect that I'm going to say, but just pretend it does for a second. Humor me. So let's say we have Mahama here, and if your opponent attacks, it gains attack points equal to the battle damage you take. So like imagine like Gorse, and then it burns for the damage that well whatever attack points it has, and this all happens during uh, the end of damage uh, the end of the damage step. But if you had technically removal, you would be able to remove this card, and then you would take no damage. But since it happens in damage step, for example, you can't activate like Nor effect to shuffle back a card. For example, you wouldn't be able to Fenrir because Fenrir would happen in like Mayhap's next chain, wouldn't it? Actually, no. Fenrir works technically for an effect like that. But I mean, just generic quick effect removal would not be activatable because it just you can't because it's a damage step. So that niche is actually open right now, where they're slowly going to perhaps maybe become like viable now, which is kind of humorous. So like just Mahama in general right now is totally resolvable, and it's not like there's a good way for you to deal with it either. So if your opponent just simply summons Mahama here, then yeah, nothing you can do about you. You will simply get burned unless you have a negate, right? When does this happen? When either player. When? So yeah, this happens all during like damage, I believe, right? So yeah, this is not super easy to deal with. Like if you have a negate like Theron King Regulus, that wouldn't be able to negate Mahama. And then we have like Burley, for example, you don't have removal. For Kashtira, you don't have any negates in general, so a lot of that is pretty interesting. And then there is, of course, also Mikanko. I'm not sure how the ruling works for this because technically equip spells there are like, for example, Axe of Fools, does that count as damage modification? Like that might be able to negate a monster effect, so I'm not sure if like Mikanko would count for this or not. So, not sure. But in general, we're getting more interaction-based decks, like destroy effects and whatnot, rather than negate. We are still getting some decks that do some like negates, like for example, Tearlament is pretty negate kind of deck rather than interaction based. Like destroy, send to graveyard, whatever. Like, yeah, that this is not one of those types of decks. But against a deck that doesn't do interaction, like for example, Kashtira Unicorn, that doesn't do like I mean negate and does interaction instead, they actually somehow have a weakness against specifically like damage step uh hand traps. So essentially stuff like around battle fader timing. So if any new cards like release, like just imagine this like Magic Cylinder, but like on crack, okay? Like this would actually be a good card specifically against these decks for some reason. So when an opponent's monster declares an attack, let's say, well, no. So when you take battle damage, let's say, uh, you can discard this card and then you deal twice the amount of damage to your opponent as effect damage. So let's say we get attacked by a Kashtira Unicorn, boom, take 5k to the dome, or a Rysart, take 6k to the dome, or a big Hurley, that's around 3k as well. So that's 6k to the dome. Specifically with Hurley, this could actually be lethal, funnily enough, because my friend gets activated twice, and that already makes them 1,000 life points down. So if you were able to burn them for 1,000, they might not know if this like hand trap is in your hand or not, and it's not like impossible to play around, but it's a bit annoying to play around. So they would actually have to do that, and they might actually miss lethal because of that. So that's a whole new layer of depth to the game if this were to kind of just become a thing, you know? So even something kind of simple like that, just like a burn by battle hand trap, like if we got some powerful versions of stuff like that, then it kind of like does show a little bit of power creep happening to an extent. Like Bahama would just still be playable for its intended purpose, I guess, but like it makes a card like Magic Cylinder completely look just useless, I guess, in comparison to that card. Almost. I guess this actually still serves a purpose because it negates the attack. So the card I'm thinking of, like, is that doesn't exist yet, but if it did, it threatens Kashtira and Prilly in a weird way. If they're lacking info, of course, or even if they're not lacking info, they could just risk randomly getting lethaled by a hand trap during the battle step, or rather in this case, damage step, which I find to be hilarious. Can you imagine someone just having to use like Baron negate on a hand trap that would just burn your opponent for attacking you? I find that humorous. Because Baron can negate it because it's negate activation, but it's just that'd be crazy funny. Even a card that has some funny, well, kind of funky effect, like let's say, uh, instead of just when your opponent attacks, how about instead it's a hand trap that's whenever you take battle damage, you just inflict that battle damage but doubled to your opponent as a hand trap, right? If that happens in damage step, then they might be low enough life points. Like, I don't know, let's say they're a hero player and they activate, like, I don't know, a hero lives or something, and then you just summon a low attack point monster to ram into their, like, 2k guy. Whether in defense or attack position, battle damage is battle damage. So then they would be threatened enough to have to remove that monster, which I find also kind of humorous, but that, like, of course, you have to give up your battle phase for this, but it's just more potential depth to the game, and I always appreciate that. I mean, I play around a lot too, but if it's something goofy like this, it's not like something to be super mad about. I mean, like, if I play around Nibiru, my opponent either has it or they don't have it anyways, you know? But playing around Nibiru is more of a pain in the ass than just like a silly, goofy, like kind of battle hand trap. Maybe we'll have like an archetype that works with in like damage step specifically, so it's like good for going second or something like that. Uh, if we get an archetype like that, kind of like essentially what I'm saying is like War Rocks but good, maybe, I guess. So something like that, that would actually be devastating against certain decks like Kashtira and Pearly, because you just can't really respond well during damage step. So I find that in of itself like kind of interesting. Like maybe like throw in target protection or something to like these monsters. So like special summon a guy that can't be targeted. It attacks and then like during damage step it summons another guy, and then they just do battle and stuff. Like I don't know, like an archetype like that sounds like not completely bad now because we have more decks like this. And I guess these guys, since these guys do have to target, this kind of just somehow works out. Speaking of which, does this mean Magispector is playable? None of these guys can be targeted, right? Let's see. Cannot target it with card effects, and cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So, I don't remember, but I vaguely remember, like, hearing something about, like, Magispector support. So, I mean, maybe Kieran will come off the ban list one of these days. So I can actually play my Magispectors. I mean, I don't think Magispectors are that good, but, just just playing Magispectors, is that too much to ask? Like, uh, what does Kieran even enable? Well, yeah, would sure be nice to be able to resolve Kieran. So, yeah, that's all I've got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.